Chapter 66, Callum. I sat up high in the packed public gallery. Far below me and to my right, I could see my father. Just the bruised side of his face. It was only the second time I've seen him since the police had crashed into our lives. The judge was droning on and on at the jury, telling them about what the case was about and what it was not about. 12 good men and women, and true, hanging on the judge's every word. 12 good crossmen and women, of course. How else could justice be served? My stomach churned at the clerk of the court finally stood up and faced Dad. Ryan Callum McGregor, on the charge of political terrorism, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? Dad, don't do it. I couldn't help it. Even as the words left my mouth, I knew I was doing more harm than good. But how could I just sit idly by and watch this farce of a trial? Any more outbursts from the public gallery, and I will have all members of the public evicted from this court. I hope I made myself understood, Judge Anderson threatened. He was glaring at me, as we were all members of the jury. Mom put a restraining hand over mine. Dad looked up and our eyes met. He looked away again almost immediately, but not before the image of his battered face had burned its way into my mind. His split lip and his bruised cheek and his black eye. But there was no condemnation on his face, just a sweeping, intense sadness. The clerk repeated his question. On the charge of political terrorism, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? Silence. Silence that went on and on and on. The defendant will please answer the question, Judge Anderson said brusquely. Dad glanced up at Mum and me again. Not guilty, he said at last. A collective gasp broke out from every corner of the courtroom. Mum squeezed my hand. Whispers and inaudible comments flew around the room. Dad's lawyer turned around and smiled briefly at us. She was careful to wipe all traces of her smile off her face before she turned back to the judge. You are charged by means of the aforementioned state crime of political terrorism with murder of Aisha Pilling, and the clerk continued. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty? Dad's reply was stronger this time. Not guilty. And that was his reply to each of the separate charges read out to him. By the time the clerk had read the 7th murder charge, he had to shout to make himself heard. So he did. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. The judge had everyone in the public gallery thrown out of the court, but I didn't care. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. Not guilty. You tell him, Dad.